Good evening once again, and welcome to the Monday Review Show. This is the second weekend of matches. Keith was away sunning himself last week in the Lake District, and rainy, of course, Keith. But what we say in Ireland, it's not rain; it's liquid sunshine. So
yeah.
But you're very welcome. It's the second weekend of Premier League matches, and my goodness, lots and lots to talk about. Sadly, refereeing issues to talk about, and Howard Webb will also come into the reckoning or into the conversation, if you like, because, well, in my opinion, maybe not the opinion of others, not quite living up to what we were expecting to see from a man of his reputation and caliber and all of that story. And don't know, is he being got at by the soccer politicians, as I call them, that he's not able to do or being allowed to do the things that he needs to do? Because certainly referees, again, are in the spotlight and for all the wrong reasons. So if you'd like to make any comments on the show or anything that's happened during the weekend or even last weekend, please do so. There's a little thing on the bottom of your bottom right hand of your screen there, and you can send in your comments and ask your questions, and Keith and I will do our very best to answer them for you. But great to have you back again, Keith.
Pleasure.
Start of another season. It's going to be a long season, perhaps interesting, but I'm sure there'll be lots of controversies as well. Now, talk about writing things on the back end of an envelope, and that's what I've done because I've made a few changes here. So there were a couple of goals disallowed this weekend, and let's start, Keith, with the one at Bournemouth. Wasn't it yesterday, Bournemouth? I think it was against
Newcastle.
Against Newcastle with the arm. Now, the whole thing, and I want to highlight it here, so just to put the thing in perspective. Where is it now? It's up here. About the arm. At one time, handball was from the tips of the fingers all the way up to the shoulder. Then they brought it down to just where it meets underneath the armpit. Where is it now? Here it is. Yeah. And this will illustrate it exactly what the story was. So, Keith, do you want to talk around that?
Yes, well, I mean, what happened was the ball struck, if you like, from across, came in. The forward of Bournemouth jumped and the ball was in the back of the net. The referee made no decision other than to award a goal. And then VAR decided to get involved. And VAR making the decision, which concerns me. And then the claims afterwards by the Premier League that this was a factual decision. So let us talk through my opinion. And I think, interestingly, Dermot Gallagher on Sky today, and normally we are in opposite corners, on this one agreed that the ball had hit the shoulder, the green bit on that sketch, and went into the back of the net. I immediately, looking at the replays, the referee's not got them, have gone, the goal's okay. Why should we rule the goal out? But VAR came in, and my first observation was, why have you come in? There's not a clear and obvious error here. The goal should stand. And all of a sudden, the goal is disallowed. That causes ructions in the technical area. You can't condone that. But this is the winning goal, would have been the winning goal. And therefore, what you had was the frustration and the manager of Bournemouth pointing to his shoulder very clearly and saying it's off here. He'd obviously looked at the screen and saw what was the outcome. There are many questions. First of all, the referee's not in a position to judge. So, in a way, he couldn't get a position. And this is where the vulnerability comes in, and we want VAR to operate effectively. So Howard Webb pre-season, I think, convinced everyone that the bar would be raised in terms of intervention by VAR, that there was effectively the referee's call. But the VAR made the decision because he didn't ask or invite the referee to go to the screen. Now, we've got to get this right, because this is, in my opinion, not a factual decision. This was subjective. And the referee needed to see that incident and play it back on the monitor, and he needed to make this decision. VAR is not there to referee the football match. That is the responsibility in Law 5 of the referee. So I think questions have got to be asked. This is now our 6th year of VAR, and we're into the second weekend, and we've got a system that is undermining the integrity of the referee, because they can't decide or determine what is clear and obvious. This was not clear and obvious, and I don't know why the VAR came in, and I think it's no good saying this is an error. Dermot Gallagher agreeing with me, and Mark Halsey and others saying, and the consensus of the media was this was a good goal. And it was a good goal. And it's impacted on the game negatively. This is not what VAR is in for. So again, another week where VAR is dominating the discussion and debate. And the danger is we don't appear to be looking retrospectively, the PGMOL that is, at these incidents, at these outcomes, and then through leadership, through education, through review, through discussion, avoiding these errors in the future. But we're not. And
the hands of the attacker, the arm part, and the arm part of the defender were very close together.
Yes.
In fact, they were almost.
Yes.
They were, and
yes.
My first impression was, no, that's hit the defender's arm. It's an own goal. It was, and even when they slowed it right down, it was still difficult to see as to whose arm it impacted on. Perhaps both together, or one or the other, but they decided what they decided, and because of that, the goal was disallowed. But the manager of Bournemouth was 100% correct in his argument, because he was touching his shoulder, and he was indicating that it was one of these.
Yes.
Now, on this here, Keith, and I said this from the very word go, can you see where I'm pointing there?
Yeah.
There. How do you know if the ball hits the green part or the bottom part or the two in between? So which part of the ball? I mean, the ball is we know the width of the ball. So it's, even if it hits him up there on the top of the shoulder, another part of the ball is going to hit the red part. So how do we know? It's just.
Well, I think
it's
principle,
absolutely stupid.
Well, we're going back to who makes that call. Why are we receiving a fee? Why have we spent years going up the ladder, a very slippery pole, if you like, in terms of reaching the elite level? You and I achieved that. You and I achieved that through accurate decision making and making decisions and owning that decision. Yeah. That's what referees have to do. Now, we can argue. And I've already said, this is a subjective decision. I'm clear in my mind. Dermot Gallagher was clear in his mind that this didn't warrant interference from the VAR. So Howard Webb who at the end of the day is the guy that is in charge of the PGMOL, has really got to get to grips with improving the standard of decision making and officiating. And
even with the VAR getting involved, he still didn't use the facilities of VAR. He listened to a voice and he took a decision based on what he heard. He didn't go to the camera, which is really his duty, because again, according to Law 5, and regardless of any other supplementary advice he can get from his assistants, and including the VAR, he still makes the final decision. And he made a final decision based on what he heard in his ear from VAR.
Yes.
Why didn't he go to the monitor?
Well, I think you can recall an earlier discussion about an article that I wrote in the Daily Telegraph that upset a few referees because I said VAR has created lazy refereeing. This is an example.
Yeah.
You know,
absolutely.
and again,
yeah,
we've got the same problem. It's not resolving, and it seems simple to me that the VAR role, right, is a specialist role. It's not the guy who refereed the day before suddenly appearing on a Sunday in the VAR box. It's not conducive to the effective management of the game at the elite level. And therefore, this for me is a basic error. This is lazy refereeing. I'm accepting the VAR. You and I, right, when we didn't have VAR, may have had a raised flag from an assistant who requires you to have a chat. And you go across and you have a discussion, but you move from the field of play middle out towards the line. What is the monitor there for? Mm-hmm. What is the simple task? What it seems that we're locked up in trying to be low key with VAR. We're actually microscopically exploding it into what is taking too much time and too much effort and distracting from the game. And I felt sorry for the Bournemouth fans, the manager. This is not the first time. The game and referees will make mistakes. You and I have made mistakes. We keep them. The reason we're at the elite level is we make fewer mistakes than those at the bottom. But we didn't have VAR. And we would have said, I want ownership. I'm going to apply Law 5. I'm the sole decision maker. I'm carrying the can.
And there was a red card issued as well, Keith, wasn't there?
Yeah.
One of the Bournemouth staff. There was a red card.
I mean, he was red carded.
Consequence of what happened.
Yeah. I mean, it was all a massive negative out of what I think was a relatively easy decision had David Coote seen that screen. I mean, look, he's just come off the Olympic Games where he was the VAR. That's his role. And is he ready? Is he ready out in the middle? Second week in? Is he still got his mental? I mean, there's lots of questions to ask. The other thing in this game, by the way, was an assault, a clear red card offence by Joe Linton of Newcastle on the goalkeeper. And that didn't receive anything. I mean, I was gobsmacked that no red card was forthcoming.
Around the neck, wasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Red card in rugby.
Yeah, I mean, he's endangered the safety of his opponent, the goalkeeper. There's no exaggeration from him. Yeah. I've looked at it closely. He's grabbed around the throat, the arms across the throat, and he's gone down. And I think, I mean, David Coote is an intelligent guy as a referee. But I mean, he was out on the Manchester City game was VAR, where the referee was injured during the warm up, and Sam Allinson took over.
Yeah.
And in this game, VAR came in on what was a penalty, and almost an identical situation in the other end of the field of play. No VAR intervention, and I mean, so within 90 minutes. We had a penalty given and what not given for the same two incidents, and I just feel that they've had all summer, to get this right. I'll tell you what, I'm a reasonable guy, but if I was in Howard Webb's shoes, and I have been in that position, I would be thumping the table and saying, you, and you're not out next week. You've let the game down, and you've let the PGMOL down. But we go from one week to the next with no level of accountability. That accountability, by the way, is about training, education, development, reviewing of decisions. It's not nailing the referee to the cross. This is about reviewing the incident in the way that a football manager will review why that player missed goal, how and the passes and all that goes with it. So I'm not asking for anything different. At the elite level, the demands are greater and our expectations are greater, but this is basic refereeing.
The Man United disallowed goal, offside. Because I've had so many messages about this, so I said I have to mention it. Did you see that game, Keith, or did you see the incident?
I saw the ball coming in and the player sliding in and making contact with the ball. And if he'd have left that ball alone, the goal would have stood.
Yeah.
But he played the ball.
And that's it in a nutshell.
That's it.
Whether he deliberately intended to play it or otherwise, it touched his knee and then went in. And that's where the crux of the problem was. That's why it was ruled offside.
Yes.
There's been so much controversy about it. Honestly, my goodness.
Yeah. And I mean, this is why I think, the PGMOL could make the Premier League were happy to come out with a statement supporting the VAR on that shoulder and goal and disallowing. And they got it wrong. How could they say that this was a factual decision? On the basis of what we saw, Errol, it wasn't factual. You've explained the other side. Did the ball hit the arm? Did it hit the shoulder? It's a decision for the referee to make, not the VAR. And the VAR, being able to review it, has got it wrong.
And the referee initially allowed the goal, didn't he?
Yes.
He allowed the goal and then disallowed it on the basis of VAR. And as you rightly point out now, who's refereeing the game? Is it the man in the middle? Or is it the guy up in the wherever he is in England? They're in Stockley Park, and I heard recently that they want the VAR guy to be in the outside broadcast van making the decision at the game. Don't know if that's going to be possible or not. But the referee gave the goal. Why didn't he stick to his decision and say it's a goal?
I mean, this is lazy refereeing. I mean, this is where there's a comfort zone. My mate in the VAR room's not going to let me down. My mate in the VAR room doesn't make mistakes.
And that's been thrown around as well. That's been mentioned rather cynically that they're mates and they don't want to show them, one doesn't want to show the other up. That's not good refereeing, Keith. That's not good.
Errol, you and I want to support refereeing.
Absolutely.
It's a difficult enough job. We bring in technology to improve the standard of decision making. and we have a Premier League spokesperson saying that the decision was correct to disallow the goal because it was a factual decision. That is why the referee didn't get involved. Who is that person that made that statement? Because he should be stood, or she should be stood down.
Yeah.
I can't believe that is Howard Webb. You know, you can't con the public. There's 27,000 referees in England alone. I'm not going to talk on the world side. These games are beamed around the world. Yeah. Referees see it and they go, you know, what is happening? And look, I get frustrated. I've said on more than one occasion that if VAR impacts on the game negatively, it should be binned. Now, the reason I stepped back is that I saw it work pretty successfully in Europe at the Euros.
And it worked very well in Africa, by the way, at the African Nations Cup.
I mean, because like the education they've had is this is where the bar is. Mm-hmm. It's boiling water in the decision-making process. It's going towards steam. That's the error zone. That's where I need correction. Down below that, there's a lot of subjectivity. That has to be, you then have to say, unless you can say that the decision on the field is totally and utterly wrong, you stay out of it and let the referee make the calls.
Yeah. Gerard O'Brien, who's a regular contributor, he said, hi, Errol and Keith. The circumference of the ball, as we know, is 28 inches. That's over 2 feet. So if it's partially touching the upper arm with 90% of the ball, does that deem the 10% handball? That's exactly what I was saying, Gerard. That's exactly what I was saying. Let me put that. Where is that?
The point here is that you have a round shape, and as a consequence, it's the point of contact. And the point of contact of the ball is a relatively small area. It's not the full circumference of the ball. It's the point of contact.
Okay.
And therefore, you've got that small segment of the ball at the bottom that makes contact. It's that makes the decision.
Keith, on that issue,
circumference.
Yeah, on that issue, for a penalty kick then, and this is not on the agenda, but I'll just throw it in. On the taking of a penalty kick, I've seen players moving the ball forward that the point of contact is actually on the outer part of the circle for the penalty area, closest to the goal line. Now, I'm assuming, as always has been the case, that the penalty mark, which is I think 9 inches across, the middle of that is where the 12 yards starts from. But I've seen the players putting the ball forward that the point of contact is actually on the edge of the penalty mark, closest to the goal line. So in fact, it's only 11 yards and maybe, well, whatever, a couple of inches. I know I'm being very petty and pernickety, but am I right in saying that? Should the ball not be in the middle of the penalty mark?
Well, here comes the change in law interpretation that the IFAB have promoted this season. We've seen this nonsense at a simple thing like a quadrant at the corner kick, and the ball appearing to be outside the line, but in fact taking the circumference.
Yeah. It's just the outer casing.
And they've now said we can do that with a penalty kick. And then in addition to that, with the law on penalty kick, on encroachment, you can now have a player encroaching and not being penalised. He's only penalised when his movement forward impacts on the goalkeeper. I worry about the IFAB because they think they're improving a lot for referees. And in fact, what they're doing is they're making it worse because they're increasing the breadth of the grey matter in the written law, and therefore, when you're educating referees on the laws of the game, which you and I have done in the past, and you want to see the law applied correctly, particularly with younger referees coming up. I mean, okay, you can argue with senior referees as well. But this does not make life difficult because they don't think it through. We're now going to get a forward about to take a penalty kick. The goalkeeper says that's not on the penalty mark, and everybody else comes running into the penalty area and saying the same. And it's like he's saying the goalkeeper's movement forward now has to impact on the kicker. Why did he make these changes? I'll tell you why. Because the playing side of the game is impacting too much on what the lawmakers have to say. You know, I think we've all been critical in the past of Sepp Blatter. But when Sepp Blatter was in charge of FIFA and played a dominant role in the IFAB, he didn't want to make law changes. He was anti. Goal line technology took us 6 years of convincing him about bringing it in. So there are some positives about that, not applying. But, you know, we're making life very difficult for younger referees down at grassroots level, for sure.
Oh, my goodness. Absolutely. And these younger guys at grassroots level who sometimes referee on their own without assistants or linesmen, as they used to be called. And they have to make all these decisions, and they still get through the games.
Yeah.
Where with the new law changes are so defined and so now narrowly defined that it's becoming almost impossible. Really, in the words of a former British Prime Minister, John Major, it really is time to get back to basics.
Yeah, and I think that they need to do that. You know, they commissioned David Ellery to try to clarify and reduce, if you like, the laws. And in fact, I think that's generally been a disaster.
Oh, he's made it worse.
It's not worked. And now we have committees and subcommittees and various other business meetings of the IFAB. And they become a talking shop where they're actually confusing themselves. Yeah. They'll not admit it, but we're moving more and more. We're moving away and making life of the referee more difficult.
Yeah.
When it comes to VAR, the difficulty the Premier League and the PGMOL have still got is they've not defined what is clear and obvious. You know, Howard has talked about raising the bar. He's talked about referees' call. They're all aimed, if you like, at meeting the UEFA standard, which has been, don't get involved unless it's a major, clear and obvious error. And that's where it happens in Europe. And, you know, we're not learning. We've still got someone running around on a Saturday afternoon and then VAR on a Sunday. It'll not improve, in my opinion, until you get specialists in that role.
But Howard needs to really grab a hold of this problem of consistency or the lack of. He's been there now a year and a half. And okay, he wasn't in full charge, but he came in January of last year. And it's now the start of the season. So he's had a 6 months to prepare, a full year in operation, or him being in charge. And still we have this now, 2 games into the new Premier League season. And we have these problems still. And they were there before. And if anything, they're probably getting worse. How is he going to arrest that problem?
Well, I'm beginning, you know, I know Howard and I know him quite well. And I've not spoken to him in months. Not that he has to speak to me either. I just feel that he's not got the role probably that I had. You know, I took the role on the basis that I was in charge. I was the guy that carried the can, and it wasn't an easy ride when I was the boss, because referees do make errors. There is a difference of opinion, but this is about communicating effectively and being effective in the appointment process. So, you know, I just think he's got too much baggage. David Koo has lost his UEFA role as a referee. He goes as a VAR, right? Then why is he good enough to referee on the Premier League?
Yeah.
If he's not good enough to referee in Europe, you know, Craig Pawson has been dropped from a level in UEFA down a level, right? The Premier League should demand that the referees they've got are elite.
I noticed yesterday also that Michael Oliver didn't have his FIFA badge on.
I don't know why that is. I don't know whether that's the Premier League coming in and saying we want you to wear this, that, and t'other. I don't know.
Now, some of the guys were wearing their badges, but he wasn't. So I just wondered.
I was surprised at that. I was surprised at that. I mean, effectively, you know, he's a calming influence. He had a difficult game, and you know, and then there are you can take some of the positives. You know, Stuart Atwell is not the best decision maker, but he is the fittest referee, and his work rate cannot be questioned. His movement around the field of play is tremendous. It's just at times he's got to get his decision making in his own mind and more consistent as an individual. And then you have to ask, how does a professional referee become injured in a warm-up? I mean, we could go on.
We leave that with a question mark because I don't understand that either. Thanks very much, Keith. I really appreciated your contribution this week, and we can do it all again next week.
Yep.
Thank you very much, and thank you out there for watching, and thank you for sending in your questions and your comments. We'll be back at the same time next week, next Monday, 8 o'clock. Hope to see you then. Bye-bye.
Bye.